these surveillance operations that went really on from the second decade of the 20th century, right up to the time of the assassination and beyond. Stephen had done this work over 18 months. It was to be a series of articles in the Commercial Appeal, and it turned out to be one lengthy piece, and there was one small paragraph in there that caught my eye, and that was the one that dealt with the presence in Memphis of the Alpha 184 unit. So I went to see him and tried to involve him in my work and to try to get him to help me understand why that unit was there, because he had explicitly said in his article that it wasn't. No one could understand why they were there, what they were doing. Well, they were part of a very much larger group. The Army Security Agency was there. They were involved in electronic eavesdropping and wiretapping. All the phones, the key rooms at the motel were tapped. The 111th Military Intelligence Group had eye-to-eye surveillance on King, and the FBI was represented with agents. So he was fully sort of blanketed at that point in time by military and law enforcement officials, and they were the backup. That's about basically all that I could say. Martin King was killed by a civilian sniper, but they were the backup. They were in the wings, just waiting. And if the civilian contract killer didn't get him, then the Army were going to get him. They were never going to let him leave Memphis alive. Because of mainly his anti-war positions, which in many ways I had really fostered very strongly and encouraged, was a reason, because it was costing. The end of that war would have cost billions of dollars to major American corporations who were involved in the war effort. But the main reason, I think, was the Poor People's Campaign in Washington. He was going to bring about 500,000 people to Washington, and they were going to establish a site, a camp, and live there, and go to visit their congressmen and senators every day, and try to get them to put back into the budget social programs that had been drastically cut back by the Johnson administration because of the war effort. And the Army believed that King would not be able to maintain control of this group when they were continually frustrated by their elected representatives. And the belief was that the whole movement of 500,000 people would be taken over by more radical elements who would then lead a revolution. And they didn't have the troops to put down that revolution. They didn't have the troops to put down an onslaught of 500,000 people in Washington. People had seen what had happened in the streets of Paris. Remember, 100 cities had burned in America between 1967 and 68 as a result of civil rights disturbances and turbulence across the country. So the country and the government was very much on edge, and there was no way King was going to be allowed to bring that mob to Washington and to lead them, and then, in their mind, their view, lose control of them and let a revolution begin. So that was the motivation behind the killing.
Again, our guest today, Mr. William Pepper, author of Act of State and Orders to Kill.